let's get into our first review, which I'm super stoked for, and I know Paul's not. Caddo Lake,
yes,
which is a new movie that came out just the other day on Max this past weekend. It stars Dylan O'Brien, Eliza Scanlon. This is a story that takes place in Louisiana. I believe it was Louisiana. They kind of talked about the bayou where they were, and so it might have been Mississippi, but I think it was Louisiana, kind of where they were going for. It's different storylines kind of going on. One of it was about this guy who's like really works at this Caddo Lake because his mother died there, and he wants to kind of uncover what happened to her. She had a really bad seizure, and they got into a bad car wreck. Then you get down to the other storyline where this young girl who is like kind of fighting with her family and her mother, and like her stepsister goes missing, so she's got to find her, and it all converges. And there's gonna be a lot of spoilers tonight because we're gonna really get into it. It all converges into what's going on with this time travel, and there's a paradox happening, and they all are connected. And I went into this thinking it was a horror, because actually it was sold to me as a horror from one of the Real Voice, who I like. Not sold, I shouldn't say sold to me. It wasn't sold like that, but he watches a lot of movies, but it's predominantly horror with him. He watched this and he was talking about it from an element of horror, and I do see it. This does have it's more of a thriller horror if you're going that route, sci-fi thriller, because it does have that sci-fi. Paul is just a purist. It's not Terrifier 3. He doesn't think it's horror, so we have to argue this all the time because he's a horror guy. He's the worst kind of horror. Light horror doesn't count unless it's for kids. And we'll be talking about that too later.
That's fair too. Yeah, that's accurate.
I would not classify as horror. Classify as a thriller more, because it does have very thriller-esque thing. But I do think thriller is a horror adjacent subgenre. That being said, I fucking loved this movie. The storylines go all over the place, but it ties everything up. It connects everything really well. The story is interwoven perfectly. I love the characters in it, all the different levels of like what's going on in this story and who these people are to each other. And before I give any of that away, I want Paul to tell you what he thought about this movie, because we had wildly different ratings, which we'll give to you at the end. But Paul, why did you hate this movie? While I was over here, like, I'm ready to watch it again.
This was the great value version of the Addams Project with Ryan.
Get the fuck out of here! No,
100%.
I will. I can't do the show.
I'm being honest,
but I'm giving you a high respect for that.
You
call literally the great value version of what? Of
the Addams Project with Ryan Reynolds. This was that without the heartwarming moments. So it wasn't even a drama.
Oh my god!
Like there was I didn't give a shit about these characters, and it's easy to tie in everything when it's time travel, because you could just be like, "Oh, time travel. That's how we all connect.
That's just meet each other different planes." That's not how they all connect. Their stories are very much causing each other. Okay.
So just so you guys know where I'm at, I had to watch this 4 times to get through it. I kept falling asleep. My wife that loves this style of film fell asleep twice. Had to watch it 2 times. I missed the mark. I don't know. I'm gonna watch it again just after you talking about it.
I don't care if you didn't like it. I don't care if you didn't like it.
But I missed something, because you
must have missed something, or because like Sturdy and I watched this together the other day, and like I was a little nervous with him because as we're watching, I'm like, this doesn't feel like horror, and I even sold him to it as a horror. I was like, I'm pretty sure it's a horror movie, but I want to check it out. I was like, I don't know anything about it. I want to go into it, other than that one review I watched where he didn't spoil it either. And I was just like, I'm intrigued. I was like, he said it will leave you like just completely floored, and it did. And then seeing your rating, I'm just like, all right, this is so fucking condescending.
I'm sorry.
This is so
sorry.
No, I'm not. I'm sorry. This
but
is
it's
condescending and arrogant, but I have to say it. I have to say it.
Uh-oh.
I used to have a friend, right? This is the worst fucking review of all time. I used to have a friend, and he was a friend, but he was kind of an abrasive friend. He was kind of a dick to people. Like, and he knew it. He knew that's who he was. But I still hung around with him, and I liked him. But when he was a big movie guy too, and he would, if I didn't like something, like especially like a really dramatic movie or something, like if I didn't like something or it made me feel something bad, and my first reaction was like, that was not a bad movie, but it just made me feel bad. I don't dislike it, but I'm owning the emotion.
Right.
And I think that's what you have to do with movies. I think you have to own emotion if you really want to enjoy it. Whatever your emotion is right after. So if you hated it, but own it. You should always be asking yourself, why did I hate it though? What did it do to me? Not just putting me to sleep. Because putting you to sleep, you're doing the movie. You're doing the movie and yourself a disservice. Walking out one thing. Falling asleep, you put yourself in a setting to be tired and fall asleep. So that's not a movie I would do that for. You fall asleep to comfort movies. Caddo Lake is not a comfort movie. It is far from it. But anyway, back to my friend. We watched a movie a long time ago, and it really viscerally changed me. I will never watch it again. It is one of the greatest war movies I've ever seen. It is one of the greatest movies I've ever seen. I've had to come to it, but I will never watch it again because it is honestly like I've seen 20 Days of Sodom. I've seen all that stuff. Terrible fucking movies, but they're movies. This is a movie that is the hardest movie I've ever seen, and it's heartbreaking, and it is everything, and it made me feel terrible. So when I walked away, when I first initially watched this with them, I walked away from it, and I was like, I didn't like it. I didn't like it because I didn't, and I kept saying, I was like, I didn't like it. I don't want to watch that again because I felt terrible. I didn't think about it. I was going off. And this is the type of friend who would go, you just didn't get it. I hate people who say you just didn't get it. Because when people say you just didn't get it, they're dismissing they're dismissing your intelligence. They're dismissing who you are. They're not taking into account what conditions you were watching the movie, why you're feeling this way after the movie, what the movie is. So when I say that, I want you to know, I don't say this lightly. You just didn't get it.
That's fair.
And I did. And the reason that, and I know what the reason that is. I'm not saying you should like it.
Right.
I'm not saying change it. I'm urging you because I know you're smart. I know you'll get it. I think it's because you fell asleep and you were tired. And it is that type of movie that you cannot watch when you're falling asleep or tired. Because if you do, you're not going to get it. I do think that if you watched it again, you'd appreciate it for the filmmaking stuff. Watch it for a technical reason.
Okay.
Because
I can do that.
I don't think I'm conveying that portion of it to you. I did like the acting, and I liked the vision. I liked the choices the characters were making. You know, so like I did get invested in. But outside of that, from a technical filmmaking standpoint, I'm like, I like the minusculeness of the warp, the portal they go through. I like the physics that they're going through, that the rope can be tied through. I like that it's stuck between Caddo Lake, between, you know, when they put the dam up and then when the dam comes down. You know, there's that cool bookend to it. 52 to I think it was like 2022 is what they were kind of going for. And I liked how you find out her missing stepsister ultimately, who got transported in this portal that they didn't know was in the lake to 1952 and was hurt, was saved by Dylan O'Brien's character, who is a grown man at this point, trying to figure out his mom's death and all this stuff, saves this little girl, right? And I'm telling them more of this, but saves this little girl. And the ramifications of saving that little girl and how it connects, you know, I don't want to spoil that because I do think people need to see that aspect of it. But the time travel aspect really plays into it. I liked how they did it. I like that the stories felt different when they were in different parts of time. They were filmed differently. Like sometimes they're darker, sometimes they're lighter, sometimes they're sunny, sometimes they're rainy. They really took their time when writing this. And I think this is a well-written script. Actually, I'd like to read the script for this. But I'm urging you and anybody else, watch this and try and appreciate the levels of connection. Yeah, Paul doesn't agree. So let's move on. Let's do our rating for this one. So my rating to this one is 4 out of 5.
Yep.
What you think.
Off the mark.
Paul gives a rating of 1.5 stars out of 5. Listen, to each their own. If you never watch it again, I won't be mad at you. I do think it's a good movie though, and I think people would really enjoy it. But any final thoughts on Caddo Lake before we move on?
Nope.
All right. We appreciate you watching this review. Oh, excuse me.